Well, hello and welcome back to Elevate Ordinary. Today we're discussing how words reveal the interior life of the person and how that is an awesome thing, except when it's not. We'll see you in a moment. Well, hello and welcome back to Elevate Ordinary. I'm your host, JonMarc Grodi.
And I'm Teresa Grodi.
And we're back with another conversation about the ordinary pursuit of truth, goodness, and beauty. And thank you for joining us again for this. Today we're going to talk about words and the interior life and some of the vices that can occur when that revelation, that self-revelation goes wrong or is misused about another person. It's going to be a good discussion, I think, here. Before we get to that, we want to tell you a word about our sponsor today.
This episode is sponsored by Rob Huller at Key Realty. Rob's a good friend of ours, a great guy to work with when you're looking for your next family home or your first family home. He's a good guy, cares a lot about families, a lot about Catholic social teaching, a lot about ownership, the property as the art of democracy, as we've talked about on the show many times. Check him out, Rob Huller at Key Realty.
Very cool. And before we dig into the conversation too, I also want to remind you that if you go to awakencatholic.org/donate, we'd invite you to participate in this mission through a financial contribution. You know, we're about bringing truth through beautiful media, and we're also a growing community of fellow Catholics who are part of that mission. And so we'd invite you to join that mission, but also check out the Awaken Catholic app, newly launched, downloadable via the app stores. It's becoming really fun. I mean, we've got lots of people on there, great discussions happening, interact with the show hosts, give ideas, lots of neat stuff happening there. So you can get that at the awakenapp.io or download it from the app stores. I think that's all the stuff I had to say beforehand. So let's dig into this. Teresa,
Gossip.
you have wanted to talk about this for a while.
I have wanted everyone to hear this particular thing that I'm going to say for like a decade. Ever since Andrew Reinhardt, fellow Awaken Catholic host,
Yes.
Gave this talk to our Going Deeper group at the Newman Club at
That
our
was like
university.
forever and a day ago.
It was 2009. I wrote it in my notes.
Yeah.
So ever since he gave this talk, it was like one of those talks that changes your entire paradigm.
Right.
So his topic was gossip and slander, speaking to a bunch of college students, but actually speaking to a bunch of college students before Facebook was what it is today.
Sure.
You know, it was just revelation about your own personal self, no news feed, no being able to share, articles or things like that.
Well, that's what's interesting too about looking at this from so many years later is that, again, it was a powerful teaching at the time, but then, 10, 11 years now since then, all the stuff we've been through as a couple with all the stuff on the internet, like looking back and seeing that, this is a really important topic.
It is. So thank you, Andrew, for the episode we're going to present today that we stole from you. So the eighth commandment,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor,
Sounds about right, yeah.
And the Catechism says that since God is truth, we are called to live in truth. Mm-hmm. Jesus teaches us that our yes needs to mean yes and our no needs to mean no. Mm-hmm. So we are people who are called to live in truth. So the body, you're going to have to help me with this to make sure that I don't, I'm not a heretic. The body is a sacrament, right? So it means that the body,
sacrament, yeah.
Yeah, the body makes visible something that is invisible. Mm-hmm. And the thing that is invisible that the body makes visible is our life, our interior life, the fact that we have a soul and an eternal soul.
And that's, just before you can go deeper on that, that's a bit of theology of the body, John Paul II back here. That was just so powerful for us at the time at college there, our whole community learning about the theology of the body, because that singular little bit, this notion of the relationship of the body and soul, we are whole human beings. And the body is not some extra thing, but it's precisely this sacrament, this way of making visible what's invisible. Mm-hmm. And so what you do with your body is so important. It's part of your whole the language of your being, the language of your relationships with God and other people involves your body. at all times. Yeah.
And this particular topic, it kind of shows that the body, though, for rational human beings, that the body is not enough to reveal what is invisible. And so human beings have words. Like we have a rational interior life because we're made in the image of God. You know, animals don't have an interior life the way we do. Andrew says, animals feel pain, but they do not suffer. Humans are able to realize that they are suffering more than they were before and that the pain could go on into the future, you know.
Self-conscious.
So the reason creates an interior life. And that interior life is expressed primarily through our words. This was an important thing for me to realize, that no one can take my interior life from me. I must reveal it. Just like we can only kind of grasp at God without him revealing himself to us. And in this way, with our own interior lives, we mirror God, that we must. If we want someone to know what is inside of us, what is our interior life, we have to reveal it. And our words reveal that. And
that's a lot of what a relationship is, whether with God or another person. It is this self-revelation of your interior life. You know, and it's, as a quick aside here, you know, it's important to, and we're going to actually do an episode on this soon, maybe a couple episodes from now, about prayer and relationships. But sometimes in our relationship with God, we make the same mistakes sometimes we make with other humans, whereas we don't really share what's in our heart, our interior life. We just say what we think they want to hear us say. So we go into prayer and we say a lot of pious things. Oh Lord, you're so good, and thank you for all the. But we don't really say what's on our heart, which might be, gosh, why is life so hard right now? I don't understand, God. You know, like we don't actually share our heart, and that's what we need to do. That's what God wants of us. That's what a relationship is. Is where you reveal yourself to another person. And so this is such a precious thing. Words revealing your interior life is such a precious thing that you choose to do with another person.
Yeah, and almost all throughout history, with the exception of like celebrities and rulers, you know, people who are more to other people than you would normally be to other people. Throughout all of human history, we have revealed ourselves to other individuals or other people within our community.
I really thought I turned that off.
Sorry,
That is the note that we're supposed to pray the Angelus. So, Mary, Queen of Heaven, Hope of Sinners, pray for us.
Pray for us.
Go on.
That's okay. Yes, thank you. What was I talking about? I forgot.
All throughout history.
They can edit this out.
All throughout history.
And so we revealed ourselves on a personal basis.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think you know where I'm going right now with this, is that we have kind of turned now ourselves into the celebrities or the kings without any kind of training, in the way that a celebrity or a king would have had a training of guarding their private life and making public what should be made public. Now, I mean, here I am. I'm sitting on a podcast and I'm revealing myself, revealing very intimate things to whoever may happen upon this YouTube channel or Awaken Catholic or the app or whatever. And actually, I was reading Cardinal Sarah's book on silence. He talks about how he uses very strong language, but that we have to be really, really careful about revealing ourselves, and in not like an idle chatter kind of way, you know, that I'm just carelessly giving the interior thoughts of my soul to just anyone who, right. Which is hard for me because I'm extroverted and I process things on the outside. But thinking about how we live now in a time where it is more normal that I reveal everything about myself to everyone I meet. And there is a little bit of like you're breaking down vulnerability in some way. But I remember the day I realized that I was not going to go on my new mom friend's Facebook page. I was tempted to look through her pictures. I was like, oh, I wonder what their wedding pictures look like. They're totally benign. Okay. I wasn't going on there for gossip or, trying to see, was she always this skinny, or something ridiculous. I was trying to think of something ridiculous. But as I was looking at her own wedding photos, I was thinking to myself, this isn't mine. like, this isn't mine to have right now. I just had this realization, and I was like, I would really prefer that we sat down with her wedding album someday, and like she show me her wedding album and talk to me about her wedding day, and I do the same with my wedding album and my wedding day, because this just feels like I'm taking something that's not mine. Like obviously she put it on there publicly, but as the person receiving it, I felt like she didn't intend for me to see it personally.
So we're talking about, we're looking at social media as kind of this leaping off point to discuss this subject, because that's this weird modern situation that maybe brings some of these concepts to the forefront. And in social media, it is media, but it's not social in the sense that precisely this point here, this self-revelation. There's many things you could talk about here in terms of privacy, in terms of, there's many reasons one might be hesitant about social media. But the thing that we want to highlight here is that it's such a precious thing to reveal yourself to another person.
Yeah.
And then that's what this weird situation we have, where we might share on social media, but you're not actually sharing with the other person. You're turning your self-revelation into material for that person to consume. But that's different than sitting across from someone and sharing your heart with them, or showing them your wedding photo or something like that.
Yeah. I've actually started, this maybe not be applicable to whatever, but I've actually started, I don't share a ton of like family photos on Facebook, not necessarily because of privacy, or Instagram. I guess I have Instagram, but I don't really know how to use it, and I don't care to learn how to use it. But I've stopped sharing things about my family to just everyone, even though I think I have people who we've moved into a lot of different cities and friends that I would like to see these things. But like, I've started small, like just sharing baby photos with that child's godparents, like via text, or like via some way to get the email or whatever, whatever means I have to get it to them. But just because I know that they will care and appreciate and not just consume because it's their godchild,
Yeah, it's interesting because we're in the most socially connected era of human history with the media, but it doesn't mean that people are feeling closer. I think we all struggle with the fact that it seems like real friendships, real long-term quality connections with other people are actually harder these days. And this may be one of the reasons why, in that sense that we precisely the activity by which you build relationship, which is this self-revelation. We've put all these barriers between it, or all these replacements for that. That doesn't actually constitute that sharing. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward when you get with a friend. I noticed this the other day, where he was starting to tell me, "Oh, I went here," and I said, "Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw you share that on social media," and then it was kind of like the kill to the story. We're just like, "Oh." And he was thinking like, I think she already saw this. And so what do I tell about this? I really, it kind of like kills that revelation moment where we would have normally sat down and retold the same story to several different people again and again. But now it's just like, did you see that I posted this on Facebook, or did you see that I went to, and then that's it.
Yeah. And I think we'll talk more about social media at different times, but I think, the main point here that we want to at least begin this with is that it's such a precious thing, right? Sharing with words, and not just with words. I mean, there's lots of language, there's body language, there's being in the presence of someone, but sharing yourself, bearing your soul, sharing your interior life is such a precious thing that we should take care to do it, and to do it well, and to do it with the people that we care to build relationships with. But then also that's where we kind of want to go next, is then because that's so precious, what are the other implications of that preciousness, of that activity? So what's next?
Well, I think, so what Andrew says is next is that Adam and Eve, immediately after the fall, began to slander one another. When they were asked to answer for their actions from God, they began to hide not only their nakedness, but their interior life as well, because they were immediately aware of the fact that they could be used by one another.
I love that moment of scripture. I think it's one of my favorite. When Adam becomes a total rat fink, he's just like, God, this woman that you gave me, she gave me fruit, and so I ate it. The double blame on God and the woman,
Yeah. But then the hiding and the covering.
Yeah.
The realization that like what you didn't realize before, which is that this person could use me. This person could. And actually, like as kids are little, they're like, not only are their bodies sometimes naked, but their whole personality is just naked.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like everything about them is just like totally unabashed and vulnerable, like not even vulnerable because they don't even know what vulnerable is. They're just open, you know? But then it's always really sad, that moment when you see a kid want to like hide something from another kid because they're afraid of what that kid will say or think.
When they realize, the first moment they realize, oh, someone might think I'm silly because of this thing that I like. Oh, that's heartbreaking.
I remember when that happened with our first child. Some kid told him, he's like, do you like Paw Patrol? And some kid was like, oh, I used to, but Paw Patrol is for babies. And he was just like,
he just saw the, he's been kicked out of the Garden of Eden.
But that is exactly that Adam and Eve moment where you realize that by the revelation of your interior life, this means that now other people can use that information in a way that you may not be intending when you're revealing it to that one specific person. And I mean, I think we know this when we get around people that are accustomed to gossiping. I mean, we've all been there, but the person that you don't want to reveal something about someone else to because they like knowing the thing and telling the thing, you know, and it makes it difficult. Then that person, we've all felt this in our life, where you now become a person that other people kind of like hold back from, and you begin to see that like this person isn't being free with me, and it's because I'm not trustworthy, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, maybe we'll come back around to this at the end, but as we explore this stuff, we can begin to see, you know, again, we're big on virtues and vices here. We can begin to see the virtues and vices, the habits that form around this. Either you make a habit of a generosity, but also a modesty in terms of your self-revelation, you know, where you're being careful, but also generous in your relationships to share yourself. And again, that spiritual modesty corresponds to a physical modesty. I mean, that's why on the physical side, why we wear clothes and why we wear modest, because again, that self-revelation of our soul, just like the self-revelation of our body, is a precious thing, not to just be done thoughtlessly, but to be done in the right time, in the right place, in the right way.
Yeah, that's really interesting, equating it with modesty and dress, because you have this tension between modesty and dress where we should be able to get to a place where you shouldn't be lusting after the woman, regardless of what she is wearing, or after the man, regardless of what he's wearing. However, you do have to gauge those scenarios. You know, I may be able to be more free with how I dress around certain people I know. But then, you know, I used to work at a bar. You do, it's fun to be looked at by the other college guy, but it's not fun to be looked at by the older married men, you know? And so you start to think about like, you know, maybe I'm not thinking that my body is bad, but I certainly don't want this particular person who might use me, well, that's, you know, in another way that I don't want to be used.
And that's precisely like what I think, like modesty as a virtue, whether we're talking the spiritual modesty in speech, you know, or physical modesty, that it's not about just keeping people from lusting after you. Like that's kind of the minimum sort of thing. The maximum though is that it's a protection of something precious. You know, that again, it's precious to reveal your heart with another person. You know, it's precious to reveal your body with another person. It's precious to be more free in your family with how you dress, or with your husband, or with your spouse. And so it's, even if there's not necessarily an occasion of sin for other people, again, it's this precious thing. It's part of your relationship to reveal yourself, to reveal your heart. I mean, even think about in language, in different languages, you have kind of formal and informal modes of speech. Well, that's part of this, in that as you get to know people, a less formal speech reveals more of your heart, which again is yours to reveal, and it's such a precious thing for you to reveal.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day because I read a lot of Jane Austen, as y'all know, maybe, I don't know. But you know, it was a sign of deep intimacy to call someone by their Christian name, as opposed to Miss Thorpe or Miss whatever. I can't even think of a name. Bates. Miss Bates. I don't know, whatever. But it was a sign of great intimacy to call them by their first name, Mary Ann, Eleanor, whatever. And Father Mike Schmitz, in his, daily audiobook, Father Mike Schmitz's book, also known as the Bible, read by Father Mike Schmitz.
If you haven't been listening to that.
We'll get to Father Mike Schmitz's anecdote in a second, but you pay the bills, babe.
I want to remind you again about our sponsor. We're going to pass it over to them for a moment.
This episode is sponsored by Rob Huller at Key Realty. Rob's a good friend of ours, a great guy to work with when you're looking for your next family home or your first family home. He's a good guy, cares a lot about families, a lot about Catholic social teaching, a lot about ownership, the property as the art of democracy, as we've talked about on the show many times. Check him out, Rob Huller at Key Realty.
Okay, so Father Mike Schmitz was commenting on the fact that you didn't tell your name, like when God finally reveals his name, Yahweh. It came through a long series of events, and it wasn't just revealed immediately because people at that time, but people at that time didn't reveal their names to someone. And I was thinking about how far we've come from even that, where like the revelation of your Christian family name was something that is precious and is only reserved for certain people.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah. All the connections here, right? Modesty and So again, going back to this, the preciousness of this, I think, so there's kind of on the individual level, but then you're starting to get at this, is that there's more of a social function of this, on how that self-revelation functions more on a social level in terms of honor and respect. And things like that.
Yeah. So actually, the Catechism section on the 8th commandment,
it's really good.
You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor.
Yeah.
Is really good.
Yeah,
it was hard for me to pick out only a couple of quotes because I just wanted to read it all to you.
and again, another quick aside here, just the Catechism. I mean, members of Awakened Catholic Nation and people who are watching on YouTube and podcast, oh my gosh, read the Catechism. Think of some topic, look it up in the Catechism, because it is a treasure trove. It's surprisingly readable and so chock full of awesome stuff. So give us an example of that.
So 2479 from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Honor is the social witness to human dignity. Honor, giving honor, is the social witness to human dignity. I mean, that blew my mind the other day when I read it. And then the Catechism says that everyone enjoys a natural right, a right to the honor of his name and his reputation.
Yeah. So what does honor mean? I mean, we can, about respecting other people's reputations. Again, not talking bad about them. We're going to get into the gossip and stuff.
Well,
later.
honor is the public, the social witness to someone's dignity. When I think of honor, like when I say it to the kids, like honor your father and your mother, I'm like, what the heck does honor even mean?
Yeah.
But it's to give witness to the dignity.
Right.
That really makes me think about how I've lived 2020.
Yeah. Well, you think of other things too. Yeah, like the way that you speak about offices, like government offices, and people and their reputations. I think about also just like manners and acts of courtesy. That those are again social. They're a social language we use to witness to each other's dignity. There are certain things that we say, or certain ways we compose ourselves at a meal, or certain ways we greet people, and those are socially developed bits of language and culture, but they're used to witness to the fact that, hey, we're all humans and we all have this dignity. We all deserve to have this dignity recognized, even if we don't know each other yet, or even if we do maybe know too much about each other, we still, in a social way, we witness to the dignity of the human person. You know where I first learned that? Where? It was from the movie Blast from the Past with Brendan Fraser and Alicia Silverstone. Yeah. So he's like this guy who is in this bunker because they thought
a nuclear bomb hit LA, but it was just like a plane freak crashed in their backyard and they got into their bunker. And so they're coming up like years later. Christopher Walken is in it.
Gosh,
it's amazing. If you haven't seen Blast from the Past, you really should. It's pretty tame. It's pretty tame. Maybe not for children. But he was saying that, so this guy from the 60s, or, who was born in the 60s or whatever, is saying, or 70s, I don't know, is saying that manners are a way of showing that you have respect for the other person. And the guy he was with was like, oh, I thought manners was just a way to show that you're better than them. And I was just like, manners are a way of showing other people that you have respect for them. Yeah. The Catechism says, honor is the social witness to human dignity. So manners are really a way of showing that you have human dignity. I'm validating that God has ordained that because you are a human being, you have dignity and you're created in his image.
And that may be even a side of how I personally feel about someone, because again, I'm supposed to treat this person as a child of God, even if I don't get along with them very well. And so the manners are this codified way in which we do justice to that person. And that's what the Catechism is getting at here, that it's a matter of justice to, in a social way, not tear down someone's reputation or not to act in a way that causes that devalues the witness to that person's dignity. That's in the social context. That's part of justice.
So a person's reputation is the truth of our interior lives as other people understand it. So not our interior lives, but our interior lives as other people understand it. When someone reveals through words that they are when someone reveals themselves through words, they are choosing to reveal their interior life to the person that they're talking to. And an abuse of the interior life of another person is an abuse against their dignity as a person. It is an abuse against the very core of what it means to be human. And this is why gossip can become a grave offense or a mortal sin, because you become responsible for killing the other person in the eyes of other people. So the reputation is our interior life as other people understand it. Right. And when you kill the interior life of another person to other people, you're killing what makes them human and made in the image and likeness of God.
Elsewhere in that section, I think, let's see.
I feel like I need to go to confession right now.
Yeah. Later on in that same section of the Catechism, it notes, I think it's quoting someone, every good Christian ought to be more ready to give a favorable interpretation to another's statement than to condemn it, etc. It is a right and just practice when we meet new people to assume the best about them, to focus on the reality of their dignity, even before we know them, before we know their interior life. We know that they're a child of God. We know they have dignity, and so we want to meet them kind of with a clean slate. And so, again, going back to what you were talking about reputation there, the idea that we might reveal someone else's interior life or cause other people to make assumptions about their interior life, about who they are, so that to cause a situation where we cause someone to prejudge someone else, we prejudice them against someone else by either revealing something true but embarrassing about them, or by revealing saying something false or malicious about them. Like that's a grave offense, because we set that person up.
It can be a grave.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't want to say. I'm not a priest, but it can be. It can become a grave offense.
It's a grave matter. Like we see that's a big deal, because we can imagine ourselves that happening to us, to meet someone and to realize, oh, this person already assumes the worst about me because of what someone else said or revealed. I mean, that's
it's hard even in today's language. Like sometimes I say a word, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if this word means to them that I'm part of a certain clan. You know what I mean? Like I can't even use language. Like I made a joke maybe a year ago. I said something like woke, and I had zero idea that had anything to do with anything. Today, and I was just like, so I can't even use language. I can't even use language because I don't know if now that language comes with a prejudice against me and puts me in a box of someone that I may or may not be.
That's an interesting point. We'll have to dig into that more some other time about how, sort of the ways that we go about our modern public discourse cause additional damage to this ability to self-reveal because we prejudice each other against each other by having these loaded terminologies, so that when you say something, I already know, I know you're probably voted this and you probably think this, you probably think that, I already have you figured out. And that prevents you from really being able to hear that person and let them reveal themselves to you. Yeah. Wow, man, powerful stuff.
So just a little bit on the specific ways in which a person's interior life can be attacked. And we know the words for these, but we'll get into them a little bit differently. So gossip. Gossip is one term, is any time that you reveal the facts of the interior life of another person. So any time that you reveal the facts of interior life of another person.
So not really necessarily bad stuff necessarily,
that's
but
just the definition.
To reveal stuff that's not yours to reveal. Again, that's, I think we were talking about earlier, that there's a sort of a modesty there, realizing that if someone shared this with me, that's theirs to reveal. And that's a very precious thing that they shared it with me, but it's not necessarily mine to share with someone else. And so it's kind of a modesty, a care of that other person's interior life. If they've entrusted it to me, I have to be very careful about what I do with that.
Yeah. Slander. So I think slander and calumny. I think we've heard the word calumny, but maybe only in a religious sense. So perhaps calumny is the religious word for slander. But slander is similar to gossip, but that the things that are revealed about the person are not true or are said with a malicious intent. So, for example, it could be intentional or unintentional. Like, for example, ignorance. You believe something to be true of a person, but you have no proof. Right. So that would be slander or calumny. But either way, you want the person with whom you are speaking to think badly of this person with this particular information. Right. So another example that Andrew gave is like spreading a rumor that someone hates you and is trying to ruin your life because you can just feel it. Like you have oh gosh, I feel like that's 2020, 100% of the like you just feel it. You have this gut instinct that this thing is happening. And so you're telling everybody about your gut instinct about this person. So that's slander. Do you have any?
Oh my gosh, it's just very challenging stuff. Again, there's so many examples of it. If we just think about the way that we and other people interact on social media, for example, which is just our common vice as a culture, it seems like these days.
Or even just like, I feel like I can't read any news anywhere without it being full of all of these things I just read. Right. Like I was just reading a piece by what I think may be a really great Catholic news source. It's not, I'm not talking about Pete Range's stuff, which I think is also probably going to be a really great Catholic news source. But I was reading this and I noticed that they wanted me to feel bad about this particular bishop. And so before getting into what the article was actually about, they started with, this is the bishop who earlier this year did this, said this, challenged this. And they gave 3 things right up front and then got into it. And I recognized that pattern. And you see it in bigger articles like Atlantic or Times where they do big, long articles and they have the time to set up who this person is, where before you even get into the meat of what's going on, you already have these prejudices against these people. And you can't get information in the news without, I don't believe that you can get information in the news today. And I'm talking about news like across the board, journalism across the board.
We have to recognize this problem.
Gossip. Well, maybe not gossip, but like slander and detraction and calumny.
Is your news, is the information that you're consuming, this is a good examination of conscience for all of us. Are we consuming information that is prejudicing us against other people, whether it's public figures, whether it's the people around us who maybe have different opinions than us? Are we listening to the news that's constantly training us in these vices, these vices of prejudging other people, of assuming the worst of other people, of assuming that we know the interior life and that there are bad people? Because that prevents us from our Christian witness, which is to go to those people with their dignity as children of God, first and foremost in our minds and in our hearts, and then really listening when that person talks, when they reveal themselves to us, really trying to listen to that, not prejudge it, not assume we understand it, really try to learn from that. I mean, like if we're consuming information that's training us in those vices, that's a huge deal. I think that's where most of our culture is. Like we're all part of that.
I've had to take myself back from all news sources. Like for a long time, we didn't consume any news. And then the shutdown happened in 2020. And it's like, maybe we need to turn on the news right now. But I've since taken myself back and just realized that like I did one tiny little thing, which is like I signed up for my local county sheriff's notifications so that if something happens, if the coronavirus, if I can't leave my house again,
big enough, it'll get
like it comes to me through the sheriff's office as just like an APB bulletin, like that's what an APB is. But because I don't want to even put the prejudices in my mind, just trying to figure out what it's legal for me to do today. You know what I mean? Or like what social rules I need to follow right now. It's too much to even go to like my local Toledo news station. Right. I had to just sign up. I had to notice that within myself and like just sign up from with the sheriff so that I can just understand what I need to do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's summarize from kind of where we've been here. I mean, again, the main point that we began with is that words, our language, and our self-revelation of our interior life, of our hearts, is a precious thing. It's a precious thing. And so we ought to do it prudently, carefully, in the context of our relationships, in real ways that are building up our relationships. But then the implications of that, the social implications of that are what that means about reputations and honor and how that functions in a social context. But then the implications of all the ways that can go wrong when we abuse someone else's self-revelation to us, or when we prejudice someone else against someone else by either revealing true things about that person that weren't ours to reveal, or by implying or saying things that we don't even know if are true about that person. Those are, we can see that those are grave matters, that those are really serious things, because again, we can imagine them happen to us, or maybe they have happened to us. Maybe we have had situations where we've really borne the brunt of that kind of abuse, of gossip, of slander, calumny, of detraction. They're big deals because we know that our heart, our interior life, that's something precious, that we bestow, on a friend or a family member. We reveal ourselves. And so it's just a precious thing. Yeah, I guess. So how do we live if we accept that as our new reality? Yeah. That what I express to people about my interior life is precious, and what they express to me about their interior life is precious, and that it's really a spiritual act. Yeah. It's not just I'm saying words out of my mouth, but it is a mirror image of God who reveals himself to us, and we reveal ourselves to other people. Andrew says that we are called in all of our faults and imperfections to learn how to trust, to stand before others without fig leaves covering our most vulnerable areas. So he says something else, but I wanted to focus on that because, so if we're to take social media out of this for forever, but like for this particular example, and we're just thinking about our family, maybe our spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, our family, the people who we live in the same house with, our roommates or whatever. And then the people who are within our actual sphere of influence. And we wanted to honor the fact that our self-revelation means something. Yeah. I would ask yourself, like, how should I go about? I mean, for me, I think I would want to have more of my close friends over. Mm-hmm. For dinner or whatever, or drinks, just so that I have an opportunity to reveal myself to them first and have them reveal themselves to me. May not be possible for everyone right now, but just how, like that would be my first step. My first step would be, let's have someone over, let's have somebody I love whose interior life I want to hear more about and I want to reveal myself to over. Mm-hmm. How about you, babe? I had something and I can't remember what it was now.
That's because I was yapping.
No, it's all right. No, but I mean it's a good thing to sit with. It is such a precious thing that we have. And so we need to do, I know what the thing I was going to say was that it is probably the case that we've all experienced a bit of that fall in our life. We've experienced a self-revelation that didn't land. We shared our hearts and the other person didn't seem to care, or they didn't react the way we would expect. And so that hurt us. Or we may have shared ourselves with somebody and then had a friend betray us or gossip about us or inadvertently reveal something that hurt us. We've all experienced that. And so the difficulty is, or the challenge is, and that's what, again, you referenced that bit from Andrew's talk, that we need to have courage and walk with God and still try again. I think we think of this in our marriage and our family. Like, it's very easy with hurts we've all experienced to then go through life guarded, go through life holding our heart back from other people because we don't want to get hurt anymore. We have to have courage to step back out. Yeah. Because it is worth it. I mean, the relationships, love. I mean, like they depend on that kind of thing. That's what they're made out of. And so it's difficult. It's tough. But with grace, we can still strike back out there, and connect. Yeah. So.
There was one more question that came up, I remember, in the classroom of kids when Andrew was doing this, is there room for venting? So I'm an extrovert. I have no interior monologue. I didn't realize people had interior monologues. Like, I got nothing.
They do. Turns out they did.
So when I process things, I either have to talk quietly to myself, which is what my grandma
doesn't
did.
happen very often.
Which is what my grandma, I remember. She's, God rest her soul.
God rest her soul.
She's dead. This isn't gossip.
Yeah. We better land this plane pretty soon, but continue.
But I need to say things out loud to another human being, or I will spiral into this craziness. And so luckily I have a husband who takes a lot of my vent, and is able to say it back to me in a way that makes sense, which is what I need. But so if you're venting, if you need to say things out loud and have another person work them through with you, the advice Andrew gave is that, I'm going to read it. Yes, but we must be careful to cherish other people's reputations. The best way to do this is to not reveal the identities of the other people, but simply stick to specific situations and then your own feelings and observations. And if you do, sometimes I do find, though, that I need to talk to somebody who knows the other person so that they can actually give me good advice. Right. And when I do, I have to be really careful who, I'm not going to go to my friend who I know is a gossip or who I know likes to hold grudges against people. I have friends who like to hate other people. They just do. And it's part of whatever their temperament's vice is. I'm not saying there's my friend, but I don't go to those people when I want advice about a specific person. I would go to my husband, okay, or a spiritual director or somebody, a priest or somebody who will cherish the other person's reputation too.
So a lot of it comes down to, again, our favorite virtue here, prudence. That when there is a place, especially again if you're a verbal external processor, of your ideas and your feelings, that there's a place for that. But prudence helps us to guide that conversation. It needs to, if it's going to happen, it needs to be the right person, the right time, the right way, and a careful revelation that is careful not to say too much or to prejudice the other person, and with another person that you think can handle it without it causing them prejudice or causing them, to see the person negatively unnecessarily. So a lot of prudence there, a lot of prudence.
We're going to link the catechism bit on the catechism section on gossip and slander, in our show notes. And I hope that this episode was a really good examination of conscience.
Yeah.
As we move towards Lent, because I know I want to go to confession after reading these things.
We'd love to hear your reflections. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, I feel like this is one of those things where it's a drop in the water with a lot of ripples where we all can be considering it and thinking of it more. Again, we'd love to know your thoughts, your reflections, additional, maybe applications of this, implications of just how precious it is to reveal your heart to other people, you know. So let us know there in the comments, or whether this is on YouTube or social media, wherever it happens to be. But the best place to leave your comments is to come on over to the Awaken Catholic app. You can go to theawakenapp.io or download it from the app stores, the various app stores. That's the place. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to discuss these issues more, because we're here to help each other grow in holiness, grow in virtue, grow closer to Christ, and to continue to pursue the truth, the goodness, and beauty in ordinary ways like we like to talk about here. So thanks again for joining us for this episode of, what's our show called? Elevate Ordinary. We hope you enjoyed it. We hoped it is edifying for you. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you like this show and what we're doing here at Awaken Catholic, we'd invite you to become a partner with us. So visit awakencatholic.org and click that donate button, perhaps. So thanks again. We'll see you next week.